Night that could change America for the better. Joining us in studio is the great Tara Servatius. Lee Rogers also in the newsroom. Tara, seeing a lot of different stories today about what's going on in Maricopa County. Some of the ballots failing. We're hearing about some stuff going on here in the Upstate. Any new news about possible shenanigans going on in Maricopa County? Right. Right. Yeah. That's right. You're exactly right. There you go, Tim. You need to check the audio on the stream. We're getting reports that the audio no audio is not working right there, so we will try to get that worked out as soon as possible. Polls closed about 10 minutes ago. We've already got several races called. Of course, incumbent William Timmons winning in here in South Carolina. Who else looks like a Jeff Duncan also has been called. Kentucky, we've got Harold Rogers is they've called his race in Kentucky in the 5th. And also Tim Scott here in South Carolina. prediction tonight, as far as how, not necessarily the Pennsylvania, not necessarily Georgia, but all of the other states, are you seeing signs of a red wave or a possible tsunami coming? Yeah. Right. When are we taking a break? When are we taking a break?
I don't know. He said there was only two stop sets.
Okay.
Two stop sets. So. Hold on. I got the paper.
Yeah. 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 No. Exactly. Exactly. They have not listened to their voters. In fact, Dana Bash over on CNN not long ago was talking about all the issues that the voters were concerned about. And the one issue she said that really wasn't coming out in some of the exit polls was democracy, losing democracy. Well, no, I mean, it's, because first of all, it's a made up issue by the Democrats, right? That we're going to lose our democracy in some way. What America is concerned about is when somebody said you need to go buy groceries and fill up gas and then go to the polls and tell me who you're going to vote for. Americans are feeling their pain right now, and they don't care. They don't care. Yeah. Right. It really isn't. And even one of the Democrat pundits said the Democrat Party just simply did not listen to the American people. They didn't listen to the voters. And hopefully tonight the voters are going to send a message loud and clear to the party that did not listen to them. And we've got serious problems in this country. Nobody has even addressed the problem that is going on at our southern border. You and I were just up in Washington, D.C., and we heard all of these nightmare stories. That is still not an issue that has even been addressed by this administration, other than Mayorkas saying that, hey, you know what, the border's secure. And we all know it's not. Yeah. Yeah. And this is the best way. I mean, to go to the polls and show the people that are causing the problems that you don't want them in power.
I wonder if some of this isn't, normally if you're upset, Charlie, you're frustrated with what's going on. What are you going to do? You're going to go in the modern era, you're going to go to social media and you're going to vent, right? You're going to whine and complain and post your meme or whatever. Well, that's been cut off by the Democrat. That route has been cut off. And so what do? All you got is your cold anger to take to the polls because gosh darn, you can't even post a funny meme anymore, make fun of them.
Yeah.
So you're going to go into polls and you're just going to go bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Because you have nothing else.
You're exactly right.
Except on Twitter, maybe.
So tonight, the polls, like we just said, have been closed for about 15 minutes now. You can certainly imagine that candidates all across the country are a little nervous about the results that are going to be coming in. Coming up in just a second, we'll be talking with Andrew Boucher. He is a political consultant down in Charleston. Do we have him ready? Let's go ahead and go. Andrew Boucher, welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you, Charlie?
I'm doing fantastic. Andrew, if you've handled campaigns before, you've handled winning campaigns, you've handled losing campaigns. What is it like right now as these candidates are really sitting back and watching these results come in? I mean, is it tension that you could cut with a knife?
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Remember, somebody who puts their name on a yard sign and decides to run for office, they've been working on this for months, sometimes years. They've gone out and asked all of their friends to make a contribution to their campaign.
Mm-hmm.
They've asked their neighbors to put a sign in the yard for them. It's really nerve-wracking to be sitting here just minutes away from finding out if all of that's paying off.
So what is it like sitting in there and knowing, the polling numbers have come out, you've heard from constituents, you're going to lose this race. How do you come back from that?
I always advise candidates, if they take a defeat, is to keep their head high and the next day get on the phone and call everyone that did anything for their campaign, people who wrote checks and volunteered, and just call them. People understand. People understand that sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But the most important thing is making sure that everyone gets thanked the day after. But I'll tell you what, Charlie, it is not a fun experience. I've had to sit with candidates when their dreams have gone down the tubes on election night. I've had my share of ones that have won as well, and that's a whole different side of the story. But it is tough. It is nerve-wracking. And frankly, I think most people understand that, to borrow the phrase, the candidate is the man in the arena. The candidate is the one who has put their name on the line, their family life on hold. They've risked everything. And it's part of the system we're in, where sometimes you win and sometimes you lose.
So when you see candidates losing, do you go back and you do a post-mortem and you say, listen, we didn't hit on these issues? If this is a red wave tonight or a red tsunami, however you want to call it, what will the Democrats be able to take away from this in order to, where will their biggest failure be tonight?
Well, they forgot the fundamental rule, which is strategy always beats tactics. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter how hard you work if your strategy is wrong. And right now, the Democrats are running nationally. They're running on an issue set that, frankly, the voters aren't that concerned about. The Democrats are running on January 6th, abortion, and some sort of nebulous threat to democracy message. And the Republicans are running on inflation, crime, education, the border, gas prices, things that hit the American voters at home, and it's a visceral reaction. People know what the Republicans are talking about, and the Democrats, I've never seen a worse issue set walking into an election day than what the Democrats have been trying to force down the throats of the American voters for the past year and a half. So if you want to look, the number one cause.
Did they try to force issues on the American people?
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats nationally are talking about this. It's a threat to democracy.
Right.
We've got to save democracy. I mean, what are you even talking about? Their premise is the only way to save democracy is to vote for Democrats. It's insulting.
Yeah.
Right. It's insulting to Republicans. It's insulting to the intelligence of the average voter to say somehow democracy ends if you vote for Republicans and Republicans take over. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's a hallmark of a thriving democracy when you see a peaceful transfer of power in Washington, D.C. or in a state house or a city hall.
I was talking a little earlier in the show, and you and I were there when Selena Zito was speaking at the Charleston meeting about how in her book, The Great Revolt, that all of a sudden she was seeing these signs in rural America, and that Trump and the Republicans were reaching out and they were talking to people in counties that nobody had visited in decades. Have the Democrats gone back to that same old, let's just go with the East Coast, West Coast liberals and the big donors and talk to them and forget about the little people?
I think their demographic's getting even smaller than that. The Democrats are ceding a lot of the Hispanic vote to the Republicans. And if you look at what's going on in the Northeast right now, we don't know how the New York governor's race is going to turn out, but New York is a Democrat state, and Lee Zeldin is running strong as a Republican candidate for governor of New York. and he's talking about crime. He's talking about the economy. He's talking about inflation. He's talking about gas prices. And the Democrats can't get out of their own way. They just keep on shrinking their message. They're living online in Twitter, talking only to themselves and reassuring themselves that they're somehow the voice of the American people that they've been ignoring for the last decade.
Exactly right. Andrew Boucher, always a pleasure to talk to you, sir. Thank you for calling in. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Charlie.
Take care. Tara, I mean, Andrew, he's speaking the truth. I mean, the Democrats were trying to force these issues on the American people, and it did not resonate with them.
It didn't. And here's the thing. When they say democracy, this will end our democracy, just go ahead and fill in Democrat rule. That's what they mean by democracy. Yeah. Democrat rule. And I don't even think the American people know what they're talking about. The end democracy. What are you even talking about? Like, okay, but I can't afford to buy 2 dozen eggs at one time. I have to buy one. I'm still not over this. You know, my husband came in apoplectic because he went shopping, and he has gotten the same thing of like 2 dozen eggs from like Sam's Club and it's been like $3 and something cents for like years, right?
Right.
He was in the other day. His cheeks are red. He's mad. It's over $8, Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
Over $8. That's cheap protein we've been using. You got 3 kids. You're always trying to slip an egg in there, you know what I'm saying? Because it's cheap. Otherwise, it's going to be expensive to do protein. Parents know that. You know, kids are like, oh, another egg. You know, and now we're at $8. I mean, good gosh. Steak is completely out of reach.
Yeah.
For the middle class.
My wife and I went today, got 4 little bags of groceries, $95.
Jeez.
I mean, these are the issues that the Democrats could have run on, but they didn't have an answer. That was it. We've got a problem, but we don't have an answer.
No, they don't have an answer because they want to print more money. I mean, it's like Jim Clyburn said.
Yeah.
He just doubled down on it last week and said, look, you know, we caused this inflation. Sorry, what do you want me to do about it? That's their attitude. You know what I think it is, Charlie? I really believe this in my bones. I think that we just found out about their censorship operation. They can go in, they can mess with social media, that they've had a Ministry of Truth up and running since 2018. You know, when they were proposing it to us, we didn't know they already had it. They just wanted to take it public to give it more power. So I think they got lazy. I think we finally have the answer to the question. So many people have texted me, and I know you too, Charlie, that, you know, why don't they seem afraid of the election? Why don't they seem to care? What do they know? Are we not going to have an election? People go down, you know, weird paths because they're acting so strangely. They used to be better at messaging, and I think they got lazy. They just figured, anybody who criticizes us, we'll just censor them. We don't have to try anymore. Yeah. And the mask slipped. They let the mask slip. Figure, well, if anybody tells anybody about our mask and who we are, we just send them. And they did, but it wasn't enough. Now they got a problem. People have seen what they look like without the mask, and you don't put that back in. You know what I mean? You don't put that in reverse. And in the meantime, they have radicalized their voters, Lee. I'm sorry, Charlie. It's late. I've been at this for 12 hours now. 9 a.m. tonight. I was here hours before that. But anyway, so yeah, no, that's what happened. They radicalized their own voters. Everyone who doesn't agree with us is a Nazi. You can't compromise with Nazis, Charlie. Yeah. You can't turn around and just say, okay, by the way, we're going to moderate. They're not going to let that happen. They're not going to let the moderates win. And they think they're battling Russian Nazis for control of something that they call a democracy. They're scarred by it. I mean, did you see the study today? 42% of Gen Z has a mental illness starting with, and this is interesting, the pandemic. Well, that's when they hit them up with, you're living through a coup and you're going to lose your democracy. Oh, and by the way, you're going to die of COVID. I mean, they can't take it anymore, you know? The Democrats just let the mask slip, and they got a big problem. I don't know where they go from here. I wouldn't want to be a Democrat consultant. I don't know how you fix this.
Yeah, I don't either. Let's go to Danielle Vinson. She is on hold. Danielle, welcome to the program. How are you?
Thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. What can we do for you?
You had asked if I would call in and talk a little bit about election night.
Absolutely. So, Tara, Danielle is on the phone with us. Election night, how do you see things going tonight, Danielle?
Well, as we expected, Republicans are likely to have a good night.
Right.
All those structural factors, some of which y'all were just mentioning, inflation, that is always a tough issue when it hits during an election year.
Right.
I always tell my students that if we knew exactly what to do to solve inflation, we would never have inflation during an election year. And so you hit it right on. The Democrats have tried to dodge that issue and not really talk about it a lot. largely because there's not a whole lot Congress and the president can do about it. And so Republicans were kind of free to remind people of that. Not that people need a lot of reminding about those higher prices, but that is definitely an issue that plays in Republican favor. And that and the fact that the president's party almost always loses during a midterm election year. And Democrats don't typically turn out all that well in election years. 2018 was a bit of a surprise in that regard.
You're right.
So we knew it was going to be a bad night for Democrats, a good night for Republicans. And I think the question right now is just how big of a night it will be for Republicans.
We're talking with Danielle Vinson, professor of politics and international affairs at Furman University. Why is it? It's always the tried and true that the party that owns the White House loses seats in the midterms. Why is that?
It becomes a bit of a referendum. It's easy to see everything they didn't do that they might have promised they were going to do in that presidential election year. Mm-hmm. Anything that's not going well, especially when you have the president's party controlling Congress, right? You've got unified government. There's nobody else to blame for anything, fair or unfair. It's going to get blamed on the president and his party if they're in control of both the legislative and executive branch. And so it's really easy for voters to say, I'm not happy about the following, therefore I will go vote for the party I think, that's not in power. Let's give them a chance. Or those folks that lost the last time around get really, really motivated to come out in the midterm. It's much easier to get people to go vote when they're mad. The other really part, though,
yeah, she's right.
A lot of our elections these days, and at least in the states that are closely divided, a lot of those elections are swung by independents, and those folks, you can move them back and forth during elections depending on the environment. So right now, with the economy where it is, you would expect independents in many of those states to swing toward the Republicans. I'll be watching the North Carolina Senate race, for example, because they had sort of traditional, both a traditional Democrat, traditional Republican running in that. Neither one of them were particularly negative kind of candidates. The folks in North Carolina both seem to have respect for both those candidates. And so that really becomes an election where independents can make a big difference. And you'll see kind of what the national environment is doing, the national climate's doing to those independents this evening.
Do we have a huge amount of independents in South Carolina that swing votes like that?
I don't think so, and mostly it's because Republicans very largely outnumber Democrats in the state of South Carolina. North Carolina's always been a bit more evenly divided between their Democrats and Republicans. And so independents have a bit more influence there, much like Georgia. But in South Carolina, if you were going to beat a Republican in South Carolina, you're not just going to be able to turn out Democrats and independents. You're going to have to win some Republican votes for the Democrats.
When you teach your students about the midterms of 2022, what are you going to try to impress on them?
That political science can predict things. I told my class last year that this was going to be a rough year for Democrats, so they are noting that we were right about that one. I think it's also instructive that our elections really have become very much about national issues.
Yeah.
You don't see, there are a few states where local issues are playing out. I think the Oklahoma governor's race could get interesting just because their governor has irritated all of the Indian tribes in Oklahoma. And so that race is a little closer than anyone would have normally expected it to be. That's a rare local issue that's really driving turnout and interest in an election. Most of our elections these days are national, and that's a big difference from where we were just 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah. As they say, all politics are local. Danielle Vinson, professor of politics and international affairs at Furman University. We appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
You too. When we get back, we've got some election returns that we're going to give to you. That's coming up next right here on 106.3 WORD. Election night coverage continues. Can you tell her we got Brenda Stewart on hold?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Let's start with this. What races are you following nationally, and how do you think they'll turn out?
All right. So nationally, like a lot of people, I'm very interested in some of the states that currently have liberal governors. I'd love to see states like New York, Michigan, and Nevada get flipped. That certainly remains to be seen, but all of those states have been punished basically by the lack of law and order with the governors that they have now. So I'm hoping that they can pull it off and that we can see a shift there. One that wouldn't be a flip that I'd love to see us save is Arizona. Anybody who's been listening to the news today knows that there have been some issues there in Maricopa County, which is the largest county in Arizona. 60% of the population is in that county, and they're already reporting election irregularities. So that one's going to be a longer play. We're probably not going to hear about it tonight, hopefully tomorrow. But Carrie Lake has just been awesome. She's worked the media because she was inside the media before. So, she's taking prisoners and giving it to them hard. So that would be another really awesome one for us to get. Let's see, another race that I think is really interesting, and I don't know how many of your listeners are kind of watching this, but in Washington State, Tiffany Smiley, if she would win that Senate seat, that would just be awesome. Her whole platform has been turning crisis into hope. She has been working hard to bring about change and make a difference with the issues of drugs, homelessness, and crime. So she's crossing the aisle and speaking to people, Democrats, who have been impacted by the drugs, homelessness, and crime, and they're starting to resonate with her. So I hope that momentum that she started to get was, not too late in the process, and that she'll have enough to bring that one across the finish line.
Amen to that, Brenda Stewart. Want to make sure you get this into, because you are you have so much knowledge also of South Carolina. On the state and local level, what races are you watching or concerned about?
Well, the governor's race, that was no concern, right? They called that at 7:02, so that one's over. Ellen Weaver, Superintendent of Education, clearly that is a big one for all of us. During COVID, we saw what was happening in our schools. Our eyes were open, and all of the parents were empowered. So I think that is a big race that everyone is really hoping she's going to come in strong and be great. Matt Lieber, South Carolina House District 116 in the Low Country, he'd be flipping a blue seat red. So I'm really pulling for him. Russell Fry, Congressional District 7, in my opinion, his win will be a major upgrade from his predecessor. And then really down at the more granular level, school districts, and we mentioned Ellen Weaver, Charleston County School Board, the entire board is up for election. And Moms for Liberty has done a fantastic job in Charleston of getting the message out and educating people. So I'm really hoping that they can get a lot of those seats and that momentum will grow. We've got a chapter here in Lawrence, and I know we've got those across the state. So the empowerment of parents and the vote. Today is all about the vote, getting out there and standing up for the people that will represent you the way we want them to.
Amen to that, Brenda Stewart. Interesting about Henry McMaster, and today I took Crash to vote with me because he was my mascot on the show this morning, trying to get everybody to vote in the background there with his cowboy hat and his signs that he got up at 4 a.m. and made this morning. So I actually let him push the button for Ellen Weaver, which is kind of cool. So he actually literally did do the vote for Ellen Weaver. Tell us kind of a little bit about that one, because we as a state accidentally went through a phase where we accidentally basically elected a Democrat to be superintendent of schools.
Right. Yeah, so I've watched that one because in Lawrence County, there's a large percentage of the population that are either working as some kind of a position in schools or in administration, or they're teachers. And so there are a lot of people here that know that I am very conservative, and they are just actively
Lisa Ellis all the way, and I'm just not getting it. So it's been a real struggle to communicate with people and make them realize that you can have someone like Ellen, that just because you weren't a teacher doesn't mean that you can't come in and bridge the relationships between teachers and the parents and businesses and school choice. School choice doesn't mean schools go away. It gives competition. And with competition means that the schools are going to need to increase their standards, be more responsive. But parents have to have a voice. And if they can't hear that, then they're missing the message altogether.
Amen to that, Brendan. You know what? I'm not a real big fan right now of anyone from the education establishment taking these positions. I want to see, you know what I want to see? I want to see parents taking these positions on school boards and school superintendents. I think parents need to take over the system. And I think, if you're not qualified, but hey, my qualification is I've got 3 kids in the school system right now, like I do, I think you're qualified enough. In fact, I think you're an expert. I think you ought to run for office.
That's right. Hey, Tara, one other thing that I wanted to mention back on the national scene, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
So I have family in Florida. I was there last week, and, it doesn't take much to hear about DeSantis and know that he's pretty popular in Florida. But one thing that I've been watching, and I'm really going to be interested in tomorrow when the dust settles on his race, he's going to win, clearly. That's not a concern. But the Hispanic vote, which has historically been locked down by the Democrats, just forever, it's changing. In fact, there is a recent poll that says that Miami-Dade County, which has long been a Democratic stronghold for Latinos, is shifting to the Republican Party. And it's very likely that he will get that vote with this election. And if he does so, he will be the first Republican in a generation to do it, to turn it red. And I think, you can say that little section, why is that a big deal? I think it's a big deal because there are these minority groups that for generation after generation have been sold the bill of goods by the Democratic Party. And one by one, whether it's from COVID or whether it's from, immigration, inflation issues, whatever it is that's impacting them, their voice is being heard now. They're awakening the lion inside of them, and they're starting to vote based on the issues, not because somebody says your group votes this way, you need to vote this way. They are being empowered individually. And so if this happens here, my hope is that it will continue to happen in other areas and states, and we can see more of that. So it's a big deal.
Brenda, you're absolutely right. And the power of these numbers, I actually had some of this in my notes. You're talking about Miami-Dade. Republicans had a 176,000 vote lead in early and vote by mail ballots. Whereas at the same point in 2020 election, where President Trump, you remember, carried Florida by 4 points, Democrats had a 387,000 vote lead in early mail-in voting. So we are actually in Miami-Dade. Democrats in most places lead the mail-in voting. We're leading in Miami-Dade. That is a Democrat stronghold. That is what you're saying, Brenda. This is not some purple area or even a red area.
Yeah, right.
That's
right.
That's unbelievable.
And if it can happen there, Tara, I'm saying it can happen in other places. It may not happen in other places to that degree with this election, but this is a start, and we just have to keep it going.
Amen. Brenda Stewart, want to thank you so much for joining us this evening for our election coverage.
Absolutely. Thanks for what you all are doing, and let's hope it continues to go red.
Absolutely. And thanks for what you do, by the way. She does so much behind the scenes for veterans. She's won an award from our governor for that, and just helping out with the grassroots. So thank you, Brenda. Appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Tara, looking at some of these early results coming in right now, a lot of these things had to come in because I looked about 15, 20 minutes ago, and it was very blue up on some of these election results. And the only thing that I could figure out was they started counting the low country votes first. Right now, Henry McMaster at 50.92%, Joe Cunningham at 48.26%. Mark Hammond is winning his race by 54.25 points. Curtis Loftus looks like he's going to sail to victory tonight. Alan Wilson, Representative Ekstrom, of course, he's running unopposed there. Superintendent of Education right now, very tight. We've got Republican Ellen Weaver at 47.66% and Lisa Ellis at 48.2%. Hopefully that will change over the night because, I mean, we have got to have good Republican conservative leadership in our schools.
Absolutely. Or it's going to be nothing but porn all over the place. And I'm talking hardcore porn.
Yeah.
You and I both have talked about that in the last week. You go through, I mean, I'm a mom of 3 kids. I was learning stuff in the how-to 7th grade manual that I did not know. I'm embarrassed to say. I was like, wow. I mean, and you know, Charlie, if I had read it on the air, we could have lost the station license.
Yes. Exactly.
And yet in places like Mecklenburg County, where I'm from, Charlotte, that's the county Charlotte's in, it is on the 7th grade reading list. It's a description of how to, I can't even tell you what it's a description of how to do.
Yeah, you can't. And
I can't even tell you.
You can't say it on the radio. You
No.
can't put it on television.
No.
You can't stand up in a school board meeting and read it out loud. You can't go downtown in Greenville and start standing on the street corner and read it to kids passing by. You'll be locked up, but yet you can walk into the library and do it. These are the things that we're fighting against.
Absolutely.
100%. So,
and there's no phobia involved here. There's none. We don't want our kids. I don't want my kids to see straight porn. I don't want to see gay porn. I don't care. Yeah. It does not. it's not appropriate. It's not. And they got to get that message. And I hope they get it in this election.
Absolutely. We've got Stacey Shea on with us. I believe this is your guest this evening, Tara.
Absolutely. Stacey Shea, so glad you are here with us this evening. She's done so much for so many campaigns as a consultant. She's former first vice chair of the Greenville County Republican Party and Greenville County Republican Women's Club. So let's talk about abortion, Stacey. Democrats have put a lot of focus on the overturn of Roe v. Wade. How do you think that played out with voters?
I think they spent an awful lot of money and didn't get a whole lot of return. And Democrats really have themselves to blame for the overturn of Roe versus Wade, because for a long time as Republicans, we were incapable of appropriately messaging what that issue really meant to us and why it should be so important to others. And with, you have to go all the way back to invoking the nuclear option, which, Harry Reid did. Harry Reid did. And that gave Trump the opportunity to appoint so many justices to the Supreme Court, which never would have happened. And then you have Northam going so far with abortion, and it turned off everybody. It no longer became an ideological issue. It became a humanity issue. And there's a growing number of Democrats, in particular young Democrats, who are adamantly opposed to abortion. So they tried to do what they always try to do, whip up anger and fear, and nobody was buying it. It's especially not much of an issue when it's so hard for the average American family to afford gas and putting food on the table. It was a swing and a miss. It was beautiful to see, though.
Yeah, and I wonder if this abortion issue wouldn't have played more in the Democrats' favor if it wasn't just for the overwhelming struggle of the American people right now to afford gas and food.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. I think those things, Biden's economy overcame their anger. You can't feed your family and you struggle to put a roof over your head. That sort of thing becomes a back burner issue for people who may have been, motivated to get out to the polls and vote for Democrats in the past.
And
Stacey, this is Charlie James. The leak from the Supreme Court justices about the Roe versus Wade decision, that got everybody riled up. And then all of a sudden, the fire kind of died down. Then the decision came. Do you think that hurt the Democrats on this issue? Because they were like, well, we've already been riled up before. We've had a little cooling off period. I don't feel like getting riled up again. Was it just one of those issues where they were like, we've been here and we've done that. There's no reason to really get all that upset about it at this point?
I don't know. I saw people all over the spectrum. There was a really interesting TikTok video of a guy who was furious because he was a Democrat, and the after the Roe decision had been leaked, he was furious that Democrats were still emailing and asking for money. He's like, you guys knew this long ago and you did absolutely nothing about this. Stop asking me for money. So I think it also made people feel like, really, are we going to become a banana republic even more so because we have leaks of the Supreme Court? And you know how you get one shot to really stoke a reaction from whatever you're doing, and they blew it.
Here's a stat. Democrats spent, this is incredible, $320 million on ads about abortion, more than twice the $140 million they spent on crime, and more than 10 times the $31 million they spent on inflation.
Yeah, those things don't matter to them because they live in glass houses.
No,
they have their guards. They have their, they don't have to worry about that. Unless you're Paul Pelosi, maybe.
I was waiting for that to come up. You are exactly right. Exactly right. So, but again, these are what I felt have been manufactured issues by the Democrats, where what they didn't really address were the issues that were affecting the average American: unemployment, cost of living, cost of fuel, immigration, things like that. They kept pushing their agenda, even though the American people let them know that that's not what was important to them.
Right. And, people in the country are watching as their kids are falling behind from everything being closed. Yeah. And, kids who will never get a senior year, they'll never get an opportunity to go to their prom. And then they deny that they did any of this. They have lost credibility with a great number of voters who find themselves in the middle.
Speaking of, a great number of voters, Stacey, for, a lot of people in South Carolina, we were just talking about the superintendent of education was the most important local election. You think that too? Brenda said that earlier. Why was that so important to so many voters, do you think?
Because we watched our kids get shut down and have those experiences robbed from them. But I think more importantly, what it comes down to is the people who are elected to school boards, the superintendents that those school boards appoint, and then the higher levels, like the office for which Ellen Weaver and Lisa Ellis are running, they stop listening to their consumers, the parents. They completely wholesale stop listening to what really matters to parents. And that lack of sensitivity, you would lose your job. I would lose my job, but they don't think they should have to. And they're going to ignore the will of the people who are using their product, which is our entire community. And it drives me crazy when people say, well, I don't have kids in school. Why should I be concerned with this race? Because our schools are pumping out society and our culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that all the time. I do. Any predictions, Stacey, nationally or locally that you want to make?
Well, I think Ellen Weaver's going to win.
Good. I hope so.
Far and away. Yeah. I think she's got a lot of support. I heard you guys talking about low country numbers coming in. I don't know what when the tallies from different counties start to come in, but I never would take anything for granted, but I think she's definitely going to win. I'd love to see. If we don't have this sort of 14-day voting count thing that, is all the rage in the last 2 years, I think we're looking at Carrie Lake and Blake Masters and Dr. Oz winning, and a lot of candidates that people weren't so sure about. These races have really been tightening in the last couple of weeks. So, yeah.
Absolutely hope that's what happens. We really need to take the Senate back. Real quick, Stacey, I have no idea what you're going to say. What do you think about Trump the last week or so and the things he said?
So I know he is troll master, and what he did yesterday had people talking like nonstop. What's he going to do? And for listeners who may not have seen all this, it was like all ablaze all over social media that at his rally in Ohio last night,
because some of his family members were there, that he was going to announce his candidacy. So people had really strong opinions about it, and whether, you know, oh, he's taking the fire away from tomorrow's election and distracting people who need to be concentrating on that, or, you know, I'm excited, I can't wait for him to announce, and he didn't. And it was great because he totally pivoted everybody's and the media's attention away from whatever Republicans they were going to be attacking that day, because they were attacking him. And I think he gives a tremendous amount of cover to conservative Republicans. And with all the time and effort that he has put into this election cycle, I mean, he is a one-man conservative party leader who does, in many instances, more than the actual Republican Party does for candidates. He is committed to the future of the nation, and I'm grateful for everything that he has done in this election cycle. We could have used more people who are actually elected officials doing the same thing.
Amen to that. Stacey Shea, just want to thank you for joining us tonight on 106.3 WORD, and for all you do for our state.
Me. Thank you. Absolutely. Thanks for everything y'all are doing.
All right, we will be right back. This is election night coverage. We got some returns coming to you right around the corner. This is Charlie James along with Tara Servatius, Lee Rogers, 106.3 WORD. with our election coverage going on tonight. I want to play you a little clip here. This is from MSNBC. They were giving some of the early returns from Miami-Dade down in Florida. I want you to listen to the reaction of the people on the panel.
I'm told we just got Miami-Dade. This is a big one in Florida. Let's take a look at, let's put this in some perspective.
Audible gasps going on. Marco Rubio ahead of Val Demings, 53 to 46.2% down in Miami-Dade County, Florida. Tara, you've been looking at this. I mean,
I've
these
got
are
some more
interesting
stats.
numbers.
They're shocking. And this shows the sheer size of the shift of Hispanics, particularly those of Cuban descent, toward, away from the Democrats. They've had it, although, it's very much a Hispanic melting pot in Miami too. I mean, so many countries that they're from. It's not just Cuba, and people misunderstand that. Actually, they think it's just Cubans, but it's not. 20, listen to this, Kate, just to set this up. All right. 2020, Miami-Dade, Democrats, blue, right? It's blue county. Democrats outvoted Republicans by 90,000 in Miami-Dade. Okay. Republicans right now have a more than 10,000 vote lead.
Wow.
Miami-Dade.
That's significant.
And that's why they're gasping, because of the history of that.
Exactly.
I mean, if you just cut their lead in half, that'd be a good day for Republicans. So this is here. You know what the lesson is here, though? Let's watch this. I love Donald Trump. I get mad at him sometimes, but I do love the man. But let me tell you what, Ron DeSantis is doing this in Florida.
Yeah.
He is. And if he can do this in Florida, he can do this nationwide. And somehow Trump and DeSantis need to coexist for the good of the party, because they are both very good at turning voter groups that did not heretofore support freedom, individualism, individual prosperity, populism, all of those great things. They're helping them to see that, look, that stuff's not in the Democrat Party anymore. That stuff's gone. Yeah. And DeSantis has done a marvelous job of that in a very multicultural place in Florida. I mean, this is what we need nationally from GOP leaders, both Trump and DeSantis.
We need the bold ones. We need the Kari Lakes. We do that. Joining us right now is the chairman of the 4th District Republican Club, Nate Loip, is on with us. Nate, welcome to the program. Big night expected for the GOP, right?
Big night. Of course, in South Carolina, we aren't going to be as shocked as around the nation. Even our MSNBC friends are going to be. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a very exciting night for Republicans across the nation.
So when we look at when the Democrats do the postmortem and they get back, and after the wailing and gnashing of teeth is over with, where can they look to find their failures in this campaign?
As the right-wing conservative James Carville said, it's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
And Democrats tried to make it about abortion, but the economy and, of course, safety. I'm here in Texas right now. I've been in Arizona, Nevada the last week, and just talking to voters and Republicans, you can't get over the economy.
No,
and so I think
you can't.
Biden's been an utter failure, and that's going to affect him in a couple of years when it's hopefully President Trump, a wish list, DeSantis Trump. I think it's going to be exciting few years for Republicans.
So what then? What after everybody is sworn in? What do the Republicans have to do to keep this momentum going forward?
They have to quit acting like Democrats. And they have to quit saying, the first thing that they're going to do, likely, the more moderates, is, hey, let's see where we can work together. And they've got to stop doing that. Democrats never work with Republicans.
Yeah.
They'll have a mandate, and the mandate will be to lead on the economy. And I was kind of a little surprised to see even President Trump came out yesterday, I believe, and endorsed McCarthy for the House Majority Leader. And I think they just need to continue Trump's agenda. And when Trump gets back in the Oval Office, we'll see prosperity again.
Yeah. And again, I don't think we're going to see any big surprises coming up tonight from South Carolina, right? I mean, everything is pretty much, we know where the votes are going to fall. We know where the Clyburn folks are going to vote. Certainly don't see any surprises here. What about in
two
the
races that we are looking
yeah?
or watching is one statewide race with my good friend Ellen Weaver.
Yes.
I've been watching just the tracking. There's not a lot of reporting coming in, but it is interesting to see the gubernatorial votes and how that's tracking DNR as well as the education. The teachers and the teachers unions just could not stand the idea of a very conservative, just choice candidate as far as schools go. So I do think they made inroads in opposing her. And then locally, probate judge, our former chairman, my good friend Chad Gruber. First time that we have made a run at the probate judge. So those are two that I'm going to keep my eye on.
Absolutely. It's going to be a very interesting night. Nate Loeb, enjoy your time in Texas. We appreciate it. And let us know when you get back in town. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
Next, we have Diane Hardy joining us. Is she there? Do we have her on the line?
Hello.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Diane Mitchell. I'm reading different text popped up. Okay.
Right. Diane Hardy and Diane Mitchell get mixed up all the time.
No, you know why? Because your texts are together in a file because you two are so joined at the hip, joined with the fights that you're both fighting together, along with the Greenville County Republican Women. You are the president of the Greenville County Republican Women. Sorry about that.
That's right.
How is the state legislature shaping up, Diane?
Oh, I'm excited, Tara. I am really looking forward to the next legislative session. We picked up, I think, not only did we take out some Republican moderates in the primary, which do not have opposition going forward, like April Cromer out of Anderson, Thomas Beach out of Easley, and then Alan Morgan in Greer, who's already serving because he was elected because of somebody retired due to health. So we've got new conservatives coming in, but we're also, I think, going to pick up some seats in the Low Country. I was talking with somebody from the South Carolina Conservative Future this afternoon, Taylor Hall, and he was saying that they expect several pickups, flips from Democrat to Republican seats in the Low Country, which is what the big area we've been really wanting to get is the Low Country. And that's always been where we have these moderate Republicans that sometimes vote with the conservative faction in the upstate and sometimes don't. So I am really excited about those possible pickups. And now with South Carolina Conservative Future working really hard to get these people in, now we have a South Carolina Freedom Caucus who's got an organized strategy arm that's going to help these conservative legislators with their messaging and their priorities. And I think they're really going to start being able to show some muscle, even though that they're still in a minority. I think our conservative, what we consider to be the conservative America First type Republican, are not the majority in the state house yet. They're going to have a lot more power, and they're going to be able to flex their muscle a little more, which I think is going to change a lot down there. I'm excited. I think it's going to be great.
Absolutely, and we're going to need that with what we need to get through the legislature this year.
I hope I hope they revisit the certificate of need. They need to look at how judges are elected. We need to look at our income state, our taxes, and of course the ESG issue, which is a big one that Diane Hardy is addressing, and I'm right behind her on that issue. So there is a lot that needs to be done this session, and we actually have a prayer of getting some of that moved through.
Which is going to be great. I know that my morning show, and I'm sure Charlie's too, are going to be right there helping you. We're going to load up the text line. We are going to kick ESGs out of South Carolina. That does not belong here. What do you think Republicans should take away at the national level if we hopefully have that red tidal wave, Diane?
Oh, wow. I really hope they understand that they better lead on this one, and they better not just be all talk. And if they waste this opportunity, I've heard you say this many times, we're done.
Yeah.
And they need to choose very carefully their legislative priorities, and they need to educate along the way. I remember Rush Limbaugh always saying that when the 94 contract with America came through, they kind of thought, okay, everybody's now Republican and we can we can just go forward. And they started pushing things through without really educating. We didn't educate the people that we had just brought in. And so I think it's really important for all of us, you, me, and the legislators, to understand this was a vote to stop the pain, make it hurt, make it stop, make it stop. And then now we need to go back and tell them why voting Republican is the best thing for, Republican strategies, and the way we think is a better way for Americans to be free.
Diane,
so they have to.
This is Charlie James. If we do have a big red wave or a tsunami tonight, I think is the danger there that the Republican Party could sit back and go, hey, listen, we've been given a mandate by the American people, and they could do exactly what they did the first 2 years that Trump was president, and that's not get a whole lot done?
Well, doesn't it all depend on the leadership?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really hope that they have, if we take the Senate, that they are strong enough to change the Senate leadership. I don't know if that's possible, but I really do think that needs to be done. Mitch McConnell has shown he's not necessarily for keeping the majority in the Senate. He is for keeping his
power,
leadership position.
Yeah.
And I really do hope that is something they can do. Now, McCarthy, I don't know that there's the support to change his leadership out, but I really do hope that they can, if they can take Tim Scott's real positive message of the opportunity of America that afforded him to, go from, what's his phrase, from cotton to Congress in one generation, and take Tom Cotton's real logical strategy that he brings to it, and then add Mike Lee's reverence of the Constitution, and message that in a real positive way to America. Man, the sky's the limit. I think.
I
agree.
Yeah.
Hungry for this real positive message. And if they will take that from this win, and then we've got it set up for 2024.
Yeah, you just really laid out the Mount Rushmore of messaging right
there.
There,
Yes, right there. Yeah.
It was just right there. I mean, you take those things and you've got inspiration for generations to come.
Yes. This could be a Reagan moment if we can find the right, I don't know that we'll get it all in one person the way Reagan could deliver it, but the message needs to be there. And I think America's real hungry to hear it.
Absolutely. A positive message is something that we absolutely have been needing for quite a while now.
And, in terms of getting there, Diane, Mitchell, you've been involved helping to find, elect conservatives for a really long time here in South Carolina. What is the first thing you ask when you're vetting a candidate? I'm like, how do you vet them out? We've been so disappointed by so many of them.
Yes.
Like in Congress.
I've learned this over time, that I want to know what their core values are and how they arrived at them and how long they've been there. And I also, one of my first questions will be, define conservative. What is a conservative to you? And I usually, it can be all over the board. And then I try to narrow them down going, okay, what are you trying to conserve? As a conservative, what are you trying to conserve? And the answer that I'm looking for is that they're trying to conserve our republic, and that they understand what a republic is. A republic is consisting of a true separation of powers between legislative, judicial, and executive, and a true separation of powers between federal and state. And if they get that all those boundaries, and that the state also has a legislative, judicial, and executive, and if they understand that everything they look at legislatively needs to be put through that lens, then I will look at them further as a consideration to have my support for running for office. Because if you look at all the problems we are having right now with our, like Biden's recent giveaway for his executive order to give away forgive college debt, it's extreme blurring of the boundaries. He did not have the power to do that.
Yeah.
But then somebody has to take him to court to stop that. All of these blurring of boundaries are what's getting us in so much trouble. So if a person, especially at the state level, because there's so much power that can be held at the state, if the state will just take it, and if they understand that they have the power as a state legislator to take this back, they never should have given it in the first place, then they understand that the 7 boundary republic is what keeps us free.
Absolutely. And definitely the federal government way out of control. Saw Ron DeSantis say no to the DOJ. No, I'm sorry, you're not going to walk into our voting precincts. Only the Democrat ones they're interested in, oddly, for the most part. They wanted to go to Horry County here, but only the Democrat ones. And he said, no, you're not. I'm sorry, it's against state law. Get out. And that is, Diane, what I've been waiting to talk about on my show. I've been waiting for somebody to draw the line at the state level. It can be a sheriff in a county. It can be a city. It can be a state, and say, no, you're not welcome here. Leave. You are not doing these profoundly corrupt things that you do not have the power to do in our state. Get out. And Ron DeSantis finally did it. And I've waited for this moment for 2 years, and it happened today.
Good.
So I'm right there with you, Diane.
Yes.
Any other observations, predictions you got?
Oh, wow. I'm also excited about the education. I thought several of your guests have mentioned that already, but
right.
As a former teacher, I got involved in being in politics because I was frustrated with my kids' education. And so this is the first time I think we've actually got the possibility of making real change at the state level with Ellen. I personally do not want somebody that's in the education policy pipeline. They've created all these issues that we're having. So I've been telling people, if they're concerned about her not being able, she was never in the classroom and never a teacher. And I'm going, that's a good thing. That is something that we have had before, and look where we are. Go
right ahead, Diane.
No, I'm just trying to get people involved in voting on education issues is really hard. I mean, we're knocking on doors in the 90s for my friend Julie Hershey, who was running for re-election on the school board, and people go, "Oh, I don't have any kids in school, so I don't vote for that." And I'm going, "Well, do you pay taxes? Do you?" So they would not get involved, and now they're finally involved because they have realized that they need to be. And so I'm excited about the possibility of some real change and opportunity in education.
What I've thought for a long time, Diane, the way that we will know that we have finally taken this back from the Democrats and from Democrats who run as Republicans at our state level is that 1 year, just 1 year, when the math books come out, it won't say Common Core math on it because we outlawed that. They voted against it. And every year the books since the kids were little, and it's still the same this year, says Common Core right on it. Yeah. Right on it. And now this is an illegal math book. Why is it coming into my house? But it does every year.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. When that comes off the math books and we stop using that junk and forcing kids to learn that and only that, and you can only solve the problem one way, we're not going to allow it any other way, then you'll know that we have begun to break the back of the liberal education establishment.
Yes.
So
pray that happens.
Absolutely.
With our local school board, I think that's looking really good. And then if we get Ellen at the state, then some real changes could be very exciting and very happening here soon.
Fantastic. Anything else you want to add, Diane?
Oh my goodness, I feel like I've done so much talking already. I'm also looking at that. There's a race with Jim Clyburn, and it's District 6. There's a Black conservative candidate down there who is just he's been doing a great job knocking on doors and really trying to make an inroad down there. I think the pickup there is the chance of that's pretty small, but I want to know if he made any inroads, if he was able to pick up and do better than that. I don't think Clyburn's been challenged in 25 years or something.
Yeah.
So I'm going to watch that one to see how well he does and see if there's any movement down there at all. I think that's also a positive.
Well, thank you so much, Diane Mitchell, for joining us, but also for everything you do. She was, she's not going to toot her own horn, but she was very much instrumental in protecting girls' sports in the state.
Very nice.
Just sitting through meetings hours and hours and hours and hours, I remember. So thank you so much for what you've done. I know as a mom of a daughter who, I would like to not see her, have a brain bleed from getting hit in the head with a volleyball hit by a boy.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And you
Yeah.
did that. You protected all our daughters. You saved their sports. And you fought and you did all the boring grunt work stuff. So, and I know you didn't even get the credit you deserve, but you did. And thank you so much for doing that.
Well, there were quite a few of us that made that trip up and down the road and testified, and we were very active in it. There was not just me; there was a lot of us going down there. But thank you, I appreciate that. I will share that credit with all those wonderful Republican women who have the time to go down there and wave the signs and make the testimony. And because we're the ones right now, and at this point in our lives, have the time to do it.
Absolutely. Diane, thanks so much for joining us. And people don't realize how much Greenville County Republican women do, just the hours that they spend on this legislation. It's a really powerful group. So glad to have you here tonight.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, we will be right back. More election coverage. We got some results coming in. Also, we'll be talking with Drew McKissick, chairman of the South Carolina GOP, coming up next, right here on 106.3 WORD. Chairman of the South Carolina GOP, Drew McKissick. Drew, welcome to the program. Big night for the GOP. You're down there in Columbia. How's it looking?
Man, it is going to be a fantastic night for Republicans. No doubt about it. I mean, they called the governor's race. The AP did, I believe, 4 minutes after 7, for goodness sake, along with Tim Scott's race. We just called Joe Wilson's race, congressman from here in Columbia.
Right.
His family just came in and celebrated there. We're already getting reports of a good number of our targeted state house seats around the state where, key precincts, we have overperformed what our goals were to pick up some of those targeted state house districts, which, for my opinion or my prediction, rather, I believe we're going to pick up anywhere from 5 to 7 new state house seats for Republicans, which will give us a supermajority in the state house of representatives.
Right, and that's always a good thing. You've been keeping up with what's going on down in Florida. We are hearing that DeSantis, the race was called for him.
Yep. It's big everywhere. I mean, not just here in South Carolina, but all around the country. We've got, again, places here where Governor McMaster is outperforming, our 2020 Donald Trump numbers in certain counties around the state so far. So, it's going to be great. We're going to pick up local races, sheriff's races, probate judge races. I mean, it's going to be a great night.
So what was the driver? What got everybody out to the polls? I mean, certainly it wasn't, I don't know, the economy, because that was the last thing. That was the last thing the Democrats were talking about, right?
Well, I mean, it's as we've said before, issues win campaigns. People get motivated about issues that are relevant to their lives, to what they're experiencing, what they're going through. And Republicans talked about issues that were relevant. Democrats did not, because the issues that are relevant right now are the economy, inflation, crime, immigration, et cetera. All those things that have turned into a crisis since Joe Biden went into the White House. Those are the things that are relevant to people. The Democrats did everything they could to try to change, the narrative, sort of like, shouting, "Look, a squirrel! Look over there! Don't look over here!" And it didn't work. I mean, for all the money that they spent on it.
And they did spend a lot of money. And of course, we're watching what's going on in Pennsylvania. That Fetterman race with Dr. Oz, they spent $340-something million on that race. That's an incredible amount of money. Huge money. I
mean, we are effectively in the era of nationalized fundraising for campaigns, because candidates, can raise it online. They build up massive email lists that are nationwide. You still have people, on the other side of the country putting in $10 or $25 in, congressional races and Senate races and so forth. And, that drives the spending. But as we saw here in South Carolina in 2020, Jamie Harris and the Democrats here spent about $140 million. And he got exactly 0.5% more than the last Democrat that ran in South Carolina. So, I mean, if people aren't buying what you're selling, it doesn't matter how much money you spend to sell it.
Looking down at some of these things in Florida, Anna Luna is projected to win in the 13th in Florida. She is flipping that seat from the Democrats.
Yeah.
And
I mean, what we're going to see
Miami-Dade County. I mean, those people are coming out in droves for Republicans.
Yep. I mean, that in a way, this is going to be the front end of what you're going to see is somewhat of a realignment with Hispanic voters, particularly around the country. Democrats have gradually been underperforming with Hispanics by about 5 to 6 to 10 points in each of the last, I think, 3 national elections. I think that trend is kicking into high gear now. And again, it goes back to relevance. They're not talking about issues that are relevant in that community. They're kind of getting high on their own exhaust, so to speak, and talking about, pronouns and, all this other kind of stuff that, that doesn't matter to people, real people.
So where does the GOP go from here? Now that, you're the coyote, you've caught the roadrunner. What do you do with them?
Well, look, I mean, number one, you don't change what you're doing. I had somebody else ask me that tonight. How does the GOP begin to change, to stay ahead of the game with new people moving into the state and so forth? And my point is, if issues are relevant and the issues that you're talking about, and the issue positions and your philosophy and your principles are helping you win, then you don't need to be changing the issues that you're talking about and the way you've been trying to get that message across. I mean, we're winning in places like, you know, the PD of South Carolina. We're going to win in Jasper County tonight, Chesterfield County, Dillon County. And it's because, again, that message is relevant to people.
It is relevant to people, and it's going to be an interesting tomorrow. Drew McKissick, chairman of the South Carolina GOP. Always a pleasure to talk to you, pal. Thanks for calling in.
Yes, sir. Have a great one.
Take care. You too. All right, Tara, how are we looking in some of these other races?
Yeah, and
I'm interested in.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it, and unfortunately, we don't have enough in a lot of these places coming in to know. DeSantis is absolutely crushed Chris in Florida. I mean, just ran him over, threw it in reverse, backed up, ran him over again, and hit him one more time for good measure. I mean, it's a bloodbath there. 81% of the vote is in, and DeSantis is at 58%. And we have the panhandle isn't even all in yet, and that's the most conservative part. So I'm just going to go higher for him. And to keep, I know you look at a 58% for DeSantis. I mean, Florida is was a razor's edge state. I mean, it was always, Bush or Obama or whoever won it by 1%, and then 2% was doing real good in Florida, right? I mean, Ron DeSantis has absolutely changed the math, the electoral math, and he did it in like 2 years. That's the crazy thing, is how fast someone just messaging, as Diane Mitchell was saying earlier, like, hey, just go out and message our message. Just talk to them. Stop being afraid. Don't just do 4 minutes on Sean Hannity, like, Kevin McCarthy. Branch out, sell the public. They'll buy it. They're normal. They'll buy it. They're normal people. They got more in common than they have different. And DeSantis did that. I mean, the 58% for him right now versus Chris, and the panhandle's not in. That ain't Florida. Not the old Florida, not the old Florida under the old Republican, we got to hide who we are party of the Bush era, where you only could win. If you're going to win, it's going to be by, 1 to 2%. You're going to thank God you did it. Under the leadership of, I'm looking at him right now, Karl Rove. No, don't talk to anyone. Don't tell anyone who we are. Just try to win whatever we can with no messaging, because we should be ashamed. No. And DeSantis said no, he rejected that. 58% of panhandle's not it.
Yeah.
What I want to know, what I'm going to look forward to finding out, is we got to look at all these absentee ballots. I mean, with the Republicans leading early today in Miami-Dade in absentee ballots, as we said earlier, that is a blue county. That is the blue beating heart of Florida. We're leading. They were leading by 9. They won it by 90,000 in 2020. The mail-in voting. We were winning before the polls closed by 10,000. So I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that is earth-shattering. And what it shows is conclusively it can be done across the country.
It can
be. And that is what's so important.
The last thing that I want to hear tomorrow is, now it's time for us to unify. Now it's time for us to reach across the aisle and shake the hands of our friends No, I don't want any of that. I want you to reach across the aisle and poke them in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Poke them in the eye. I don't want none of this back slapping, fist bumping going on in the Senate or in the House. These people have tried to destroy our lives for the past 2 years. They have run a roughshod over this country. Look at where we are. Look at record inflation. Look at the immigration crisis. You cannot be friends with people that want to destroy this country. I always see those bumper stickers that say coexist. And I think, how do you coexist with somebody who wants to chop your head off? You can't.
No.
You can't.
You can't. How do you coexist with somebody who wants to shut down 21% of our energy grid?
Right.
20. That's what coal is. 21%. And you know what's crazy? Again, our story, we got to get better messaging. We need to explain to people. You shut down coal plants, that's 21% of the American energy mix. Gone with nothing to replace it. You can't, you're right, Charlie, you can't coexist with that.
You go into a hospital, and that hospital has a sign on it that says, this hospital is 100% powered by wind and solar.
Yeah. I'm not having my coronary bypass there.
You don't go in for surgery at that hospital.
No, you don't.
No, you want that diesel generator up and running and ready to go.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we're running out of that now.
Right.
Allendale, one of the turnpikes in Allendale had a big sign, no diesel. That's scary. Diesel
it's
shuts
ridiculous.
Down, this country shuts down.
It is ridiculous. We were leading the world in production.
Yeah.
We passed Russia.
You're exactly right.
Man-caused disaster.
And that's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
This was a human-made natural disaster, and that human was Joe Biden or whoever is pulling his strings, whether it's Susan Rice or Valerie Jarrett or Obama.
And here's
whoever it
another
is.
one. All of this going on, Charlie. What is your priority? Oh, 87,000 new IRS agents. That's our priority.
Right.
That's got to be reversed. That's going to be cleaned up and reversed.
Well, the way they tried to sell that was, oh, well, we're not coming after the average guy, but that's not the truth.
No.
Because when the IRS sends a letter to you, you owe us $100. What do?
But panic.
Write $100 check and
yeah,
send
you
it
send
back,
it because
right?
why fight them, right? Yeah.
You send it to the average American. They send out a letter. They get a check back. You send a letter to a wealthy man. You don't get a check back. You get a letter from their lawyer, or you get a letter from their accountant. And they say, well, let's go to court and figure this out. And they just want the low-hanging fruit. Those 87,000 IRS agents are going after low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely. So tell me this, Charlie. This is going to be the fun part if we win the House. And there's already weird stuff going on with absentee ballots in Pennsylvania right now. And you're looking at Allegheny County returning more absentee ballots than Philadelphia, but there's way more voters in Philadelphia. I mean, the numbers are starting to do that funny, wobbly blue county math.
The magic show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Allegheny County was one of the counties in Pennsylvania the Department of Justice sent their, I call them goon squad out to make sure all that voting's going down.
Right,
they're going to combat election fraud, but they're going almost only to Democrat-controlled counties. What does that tell you?
They were only the hotbeds.
Right, only the hotbeds. The very places out of which, the Cobb counties, the Fulton counties, we're watching people on TV, usher all the journalists, all the poll watchers out and then pull the big suitcases full of ballots and start counting them, not know they're on video. Those counties, that's where the DOJ is going. Yeah. So, I mean, all of that, we already got funny stuff going on in Pennsylvania. So let's think about the House, right? If we take the House and we take it bigly, what do you think the next few days are going to be like? What are the networks going to be like? What are the Democrats going to be like? What are the next few years going to be like? You think we're going to double down and go full totalitarian? Because that's what I think they're going to do.
Oh, you know what? I do too.
Like they're going to go iron fist.
I think immediately tomorrow or the day that we know all the actual results, and if it is a big win for the Republicans, it is going to be that we have lost our democracy, that this was the midterm election where America died or lost its soul, and we have to gain it back. And then they're going to try to paint the Democrats, as they always do, as being this loving, kind, wonderful, kumbaya singing group of people. And the Republicans, it's going to be the birth of authoritarianism, is the way they're going to try to paint it.
Yep.
This is the year that America became an authoritarian country. When they're the ones that were shutting things down, they were the ones that were shutting things down and shutting people up, which is exactly what authoritarians do. They want to take away your guns. They want to throw masks on your kids. They want to inject stuff into your body that you may or may not want, but they want to force you to do it anyway. And for some reason, the people that are against those things are authoritarian.
Right, which crazy. Makes no sense.
No. I mean, they are living the actual definition of authoritarian.
Yeah.
But they want to point the finger at Trump and ultimately DeSantis, who right now, I really believe the only thing that's keeping the Democrats off of DeSantis right now is Trump.
Because he's going first.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going first.
Yeah, he's drawing the fire.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, that was an interesting perspective that Stacey had, that he has drawn some of the fire, and he should, I guess, get some credit for that. Yeah. I didn't like some of his timing this weekend, but just hold off for a week, gentlemen, and then you can walk 6 paces, turn and fire simultaneously. Right.
But, I mean, we will see. I mean, Trump has done some things in the past where I questioned it, and then ultimately he turned out to have some pretty good for a guy that's not a politician, so to speak. He's got pretty good political instinct.
Yeah, he does.
And that's hard to imagine. Looking at a troublesome race down in the 1st Congressional District here in South Carolina, Annie Andrews, I know this is still early. Annie Andrews is leading Nancy Mace 58 to 41going
How many are reporting what percentage?
It's still at 0% reporting, but this is going to get an update here in about half an hour, or 30 seconds. Still haven't seen, and you know, we still both have contacts down in Charleston. Haven't seen a tremendous campaign. I know she had Tulsi Gabbard with her this week down in the Low Country. So that would be an interesting race to lose. That will mean that it is flipped back and forth between Democrat and Republicans every year since Sanford left.
I'd be surprised if Mace loses, though. She's a good fit
Yeah.
for that district. She's
Yeah.
a little more moderate than I like, but that area is a little more moderate than I like. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Isn't that the truth?
she fits the district. Interesting right now, and it's look, I'm not going to get too upset about this, but Raphael Warnock right now is 50.4% in Georgia, but there's only 44% reporting.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll see what to make of that. Some of these are just hard right now because, you know, it's just so little of the vote in. But Herschel Walker's at 47.9, Warnock's at 50.4. But again, that's
Which
with,
counties, which districts?
yeah,
came
it's
in
44% reporting. So that may not mean anything.
Yeah, I mean that could have been the Fulton, DeKalb County
Yeah.
a vote right there, which is going to go heavily towards Warnock. You get into more of the rural areas of Georgia, and they're big Herschel fans there. So we'll see.
Huge. We were just driving through there, Charlie. You know, we went about a month ago, or a little more now, to a bunch of vineyards out there, and boy, they tell us they tell us, hey, a bunch of redneck Republicans, what a bunch of racists. There's nothing but Herschel Walker signs all through rural Georgia, and you get closer to the big population areas, they disappear. That's the funny part.
It really is, and for some reason, you know, the folks that live in the big cities think that the folks that live out in the urban area or the rural areas, they're the ones causing global warming.
Right.
They're the ones that are causing all the problems. And again, it's completely the opposite of reality.
Raising the cattle that the ones in the cities want to go out to their steakhouses and eat. Right.
I don't want you raising cattle, but I sure do like a good ribeye.
Yes.
So it's the hypocrisy that's going on. So again, well, let me ask you what you asked me the question. What do you think is going to happen if the red wave happens tonight? How does the House look?
It's going to depend on how big it is, how big the win is, how much of a mandate, and whether we're going to finally get some governing out of McCarthy. I mean, you know what I would love to see? I would love to see Elise Stefanik step into that leadership role. She has been really great. She is definitely part of the GOP leadership. She's got one foot in the country club, but she's got the other, deep into MAGA, and she really has put together tremendous effort, working with the War Room posse to monitor a lot of these polling places and get this actual work done that Kevin McCarthy won't do. I mean, she is who I would pick because I think both sides will take her. And I really wish she could be the Republican leader. I really, really hope we don't fritter this one away on another 4 years from Mitch McConnell.
It would be horrible.
And you know what? We only need one of them. I think Rick Scott, who clearly wants to challenge McConnell. I think Josh Hawley's already said he's not voting for McConnell. I think if we could just get one leader, just one. Maybe we got Kevin McCarthy over there, and we got Rick Scott, and he's going to lead finally in the Senate. That's all we need. We need one leader who isn't canceled and who isn't Donald Trump. We need somebody else to lead us right now, who is in Republican leadership. And by that, I mean either in the number one, number two spot in Senate, number one, number two spot in the House. That's what we have got to have. Cannot have McConnell anymore. We can't have that. So we just need one. Just give us one. And I think Kevin McCarthy will fall in line if we had that Senate leadership.
Yeah. You know, back in 2016, when Trump won election and the Republicans won the House and the Senate, one of the most horrible comments that I heard was from Paul Ryan, and a reporter asked him. They said, "Well, you got the White House, you got the House and the Senate. What are you going to do?" And he said, "Well, I guess now we're going to learn how to govern." And I
used to call him Ratfink.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I called him on the air, Ratfink, because he just did so much damage to us.
Learn how to govern. I thought that's why you ran for office, was to govern. But apparently not. Apparently it was surprising him. So let's switch gears here. You're the Democrats. You lose big tonight. Who are you pushing to the margins tomorrow?
Joe Biden. They've been preparing for that all week. I think, Charlie, that's the first time why you saw the Washington Post actually do a what did they call that? They gave the Biden the Pinocchio rating.
The bottomless.
The bottomless. That's what it was.
Pinocchio.
Yeah. The bottomless Pinocchio basically said everything he said on the campaign trail is a lie. They are going to try to pin this on him to minimize the damage to the Democrat Party. No. That wasn't our agenda. Everyone loves us. That's just old Joe over there. Well, all Joe's doing is implementing their agenda. Yeah. This isn't Joe's agenda. Joe doesn't even know what's going on. This is the Democrat Party agenda, and that's got to be the next step for us, just getting people to understand this isn't because Joe's senile. It's not because he had 2 aneurysms and has brain damage. It's not because, he's not that bright. It's not because of any of that. Joe is implementing the Democrat agenda, and it will look exactly the same under a Pete Buttigieg or an Amy Klobuchar.
Sure.
Nothing changes.
Who's got the most political capital right now in the Democrat Party?
Gavin Newsom.
Oh, do you think it's Gavin?
Yeah. No, I think it is Gavin Newsom. What with them, with their people, not with the country, but with them. Yeah. I mean, his star, I think, is big right now. And we'll see. But I mean, after him, I don't think they've got a lot of big stars. And the problem with him is he is, thought of by the general public as so far left. I mean, California governor, do we really want that? I mean, it's they got a lot of problems, Charlie. They got
don't
so
have a
many
lot
problems.
of depth right now.
No, they don't. They don't.
Buttigieg wasn't at work for 2.5 months and nobody noticed.
I know.
So, I mean,
he's barely at work now. I mean, he only, I don't know if he's changed diapers or whatever. God bless him. But he is not around. He pops up like once a month and does an interview. That's it.
When Obama gave that speech at the convention and everybody was like, all right, that's the guy.
Right.
That's the next star. There's nobody like that in the Democrat Party right now, is there?
Not that I can think of. And, one of the most fascinating sets of exit polls I've ever seen was, and I can remember just marveling over it, was when Obama ran against Romney. And they would ask all these people who just voted, who do you like better? Obama. Okay. Who do you agree with on this issue? And they'd go down 20 issues that were in the campaign. They agreed with Romney on like 19 of them and not Obama.
Yeah.
So it's cult of personality. They like Obama's personality. With Trump, it flipped. They agreed with Trump on all the issues. They didn't like his personality as much. Yeah. They sure liked his economy, though.
Absolutely.
Right? So do the Democrats have anybody? Because you can't sell their agenda. You couldn't even sell it during the Obama era. They just liked Obama. They're going to have to get a real magnetic personality to fix this mess. And I don't know who that is.
I don't either, because I was just thinking there's nobody that everybody was clamoring for to appear with them on the campaign stage.
You know what? If they had any sense, who it would have been? And we would have been in trouble. Tulsi Gabbard. They had the perfect bridge candidate. And they massacred her in the primary.
They did.
They took her, cut her off at the knees, and I think she's never forgiven them. And I've always just breathed a sigh of relief over that. Like, thank God they never figured out, because if they'd run Tulsi.
Yeah. Trouble. I mean, you look at Hillary Clinton said she was a Russian asset.
Yeah.
Which, after the debate. So unbelievable what's going on. Tim, what time we got to get out of here tonight? We got to hit a hard break coming up at
now.
50. Right now? Is this
right
it?
Now.
This
has been fun, Charlie. We got to do this again.
I would love to do that. Absolutely. Tara, always a great pleasure to see you. Lee, thanks for joining us this morning. Tim, on the board, we appreciate it, buddy. Thank you. Election night. We'll talk about this tomorrow. Join Tara first thing in the morning.
A couple hours from now.
Not
long from now.
Y'all have a great night. Pray for a red wave.
Yes, a big one.
See you soon. God bless. Buckle up. Bye, y'all.